Like, we talk to people from every corner of the globe and from all walks of life and experience, and different, people who have different expertise and different roles on different types of shows. I mean, it's a huge spectrum.
I feel kind of lucky because not only do I learn something about the industry or the person or their craft or their skill, I'm always leaving the podcast never wishing that didn't happen, that conversation didn't happen. Sometimes I'm dragging my, excuse the French, ass to a podcast after a very long day, or I'm getting up at 6 a.m. to do it at 7 a.m. before a long day.
And it's interesting how it aligns, because I think I started talking about people that build the industry and you're talking about the audiences, but I think it's intertwined, and probably that's our role right in the middle. Like, we're taking this legacy that has been handed over to us, and how do we make sure this still exists?
Welcome to the very last TheatreArtLife Podcast, people. I'm here with my co-hosts, with Kat and Anna. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi, Anna.
We're very sad about this. Not really.
Yeah, it's a big momentous occasion for us all, and we thought that the best way to finish the podcast was to get together and have a quick chat, and also explain to our audience that it's not the end. It is merely a transition into something else, and we're moving to a new name and a new platform and a larger team, which is super exciting. So I'll start a little bit with just a bit of an explanation of what's been happening with TheatreArtLife over the last 9 months. We've been in discussion with Circus Talk, and being very, very similar platforms in the same space, and working in our own little squirrel holes in the industry, we decided that actually we could be better together and stronger together, and therefore we've decided to merge. And because Circus Talk was its own niche thing and TheatreArtLife was its own thing, we have now come up with a new name, which is called StageLync. And StageLync is going to be launched June next month, and we're transitioning into that. So the TheatreArtLife Podcast is going to become the StageLync Podcast, and we will be back with a new jingle, new guests, new excitement, and maybe some new hosts as well. We've got lots planned for you guys. So,
Although your
really
old hosts are still staying.
My old hosts are still saying yes. These ones are here, thank God, because I need them in my life. There's lots going on. So just want to now, just to sort of, it's a moment for me and Kat and Anna to reflect on, gosh, what we've done since we started. We've done how many episodes? I need to look that up
now. Over 200, I think.
200.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have
since
been
we
here.
started in the pandemic.
Yeah. We started on July 21st, 2020, Anna.
Wow. It's been
almost 4 years. Yeah.
I can't believe we've been podcasting for 4 years.
Me neither. I thought maybe 2.5, 3.
Yeah. And when did you? What was the month that you? What was the year you joined, Kat?
I joined in. I think my first recording was in August of 2022. So I guess halfway through your journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been a listener for 2 years as well, and had been on the podcast as a guest, I think, about a year before that. So I like to think that our journeys were parallel, and then they came together.
For sure.
In so many ways.
We're at 211 episodes uploaded and published.
Wow, we rock.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I know. So Anna is one of the people, the impetus behind this podcast, I would say, because you were the one that called me up in the middle of the pandemic and said, well, you wrote to me and said, I really love reading your articles, but I'd rather listen to them because I go bike riding and I need to listen. I want to do that.
True story.
Have you ever thought about a podcast? And I was like, no, but yes, we could do one. Will you help me? And you were 100% in, and this is the impetus of starting that. So tell me about how do you feel after 4 years of podcasting, Anna? What's the journey been like for you?
well, it's been 4 years, right? Because there was the pandemic and then the post-pandemic with everything happening at once. But thinking only about the podcast, I think what I really take away at this point is that it's incredible that I'd say everyone that we've talked to really love what they do and they're good at it, probably because they truly love what they do and they're very passionate about it. So there's that correlation of people being good at what they love to do. I don't know if they love it because they're good or they're good because they love it. I don't know, but that's definitely shocking, and how important the relationship to the people that you work with is. And that being one of the highlights of people always saying that what they like most about the industry is the people I work with.
Mm.
Yeah.
What about you, Kat?
I think honestly, my favorite thing about being a part of this process has just been how small it makes the world feel. Like, we talk to people from every corner of the globe and from all walks of life and experience, and different, people who have different expertise and different roles on different types of shows. I mean, it's a huge spectrum of people that we speak to. And it's been really, really cool to bring them all into this space, regardless of where the three of us are, which also tends to be in every corner of the globe. And it's just been, I think, a really, really cool, community that we've built of, whether it's our guests or our listeners. I think it's just a really fun way for everybody to stay connected, which is why I started listening to this podcast in the first place, because, we didn't have theater. We didn't have shows. It was COVID time. There wasn't much of a way to connect. And I just wanted to listen to people who do the thing that we do. And I think even now that we're kind of back to it, it's still a place to come, that is not necessarily a physical space, but a space where, you can connect with people and hear their stories. And for some people might be a moment that they think, hey, I could do that too, which is really, really amazing. It's a very special thing that we do, I think. And I'm only more excited to see what happens with StageLync, which can only be more of the same good thing.
Do either of you have a standout guest from either a listener or a interviewer? It's a hard question, right? Because we've interviewed so many cool people.
Yeah, but I think I know you could guess who would be mine. I think.
Wet.
Yeah, of course.
I picked it. I can't believe I picked it. I think, Kat, I don't know if you listen to this podcast, but I don't think I've ever seen Anna nerd out more than in that podcast. In my life.
I think I remember this. Yeah.
She was so technique in that interview. It was so funny. I can't believe I picked that.
Oh my gosh.
And it's been a while since then, but yeah.
No, that was it. What about for you, Kat?
Well, it's funny because actually, the person that comes to mind is a person that I know well and work with. But what was so exciting about it to me was that I spend every single day with her. This is Kaz Finnan that I'm thinking of. Hey, Kaz. And she is our performance medicine head on the show that I tour with Cirque. And I spend every single day with this person. But in recording a podcast with her, I learned about a dozen things I didn't know about her. And I think that's really that's kind of the magic of this, is really finding out all these layers of the people who were before we knew them, which is kind of a fun part of bringing on the folks that we already know, is you get to learn so much more about them. And it's always fun to meet new people, but I feel like we also uncover the people that we do know as well, which is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of, the conversation digs to a level that you don't usually do in the workplace, right? And always getting people, it's really hard for me to think about a standout guest, because there's been so many for me that I have learned from, benefited from, hired. But there's and what I generally take away from each and every podcast is I feel I feel kind of lucky because not only do I learn something about the industry or the person or their craft or their skill, I'm always leaving the podcast never wishing that didn't happen. That conversation didn't happen. You know, sometimes I'm dragging my, excuse the French, ass to a podcast after a very long day, or I'm getting up at 6 a.m. to do it at 7 a.m. before a long day. And sometimes that's really difficult for me and I have to switch on and then go into this podcast. And never once, it's like a yoga session. Never once after I'm finished in that interview do I feel like that was time wasted. And I feel energized for what I do in the industry, and why I do what I do. And it is a constant reminder. So for me, the podcast, with thank you, Anna, for starting it with me, is it constantly fills my cup on reinforcing why I do what I do and my passion for the industry as well. So that's kind of, but I'll say that like every guest is like, it's the last guest I interviewed for me, you know, like the last guest I interviewed, which is actually going to be one of the first StageLync podcasts, introduced me to some American playwrights that I didn't even know about, and series that I literally, after the podcast, went on Amazon and clicked on 3 plays that I'm going to buy in my next Amazon purchasing round. Do you know what I mean? So that's how much people inspire me when I meet them, which is really cool. So, Anna,
I love that you.
No, go ahead, Kat.
I love that you mentioned the weird times and the need to kind of drag yourself to the podcast, but then you feel so awake afterward, because as you both know, over the last few years, like many of the podcasts that I've recorded have been between the hours of, say, 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., depending on where I'm at in the world, which is, you know, not always something one feels really excited to either wake up for or stay awake for. But it's so funny that you say that, because every single time at the end of it, I'm full of energy. Like, I'm so excited by everything that I've just talked to this person about, and I cannot go to sleep. So if any of my team members from Alegria are listening to this, if I have brought you baked goods to work, it is almost definitely because I was supposed to be sleeping, but I couldn't sleep because I was very excited by the podcast that I just recorded. So you're welcome.
I love there's a correlation between podcast and baking.
It's they happen on the same nights. It's just how it goes.
I love it. And I agree. I definitely agree. Like, I remember I think I did the Julia Middletons at 6 a.m. or 5-ish in a closet in New York. And definitely worth it. There those conversations that it's like just feel you and fuel you to keep going. And it's like, yes, there's good in people. There's interesting stuff.
And now a note from our sponsor. The TheatreArtLife Podcast is proud to be sponsored by ClearCom. ClearCom is the leader in voice communications for theatre and the performing arts. Call your cues with the simplicity and elegance of ClearCom Intercom Solutions. You can find them at ClearCom.com. Go check them out.
Would you say that the closet in New York is the weirdest place you've ever recorded?
Well, no, because that's actually a suggestion we do. We suggest people recording closets because it's a good place to not have an echo, Kat.
That's right. It's funny.
That's true.
It's funny because I think that, you know, in total transparency to people who listen to us, like, we're not always in the environment that's conducive for doing a podcast, right? Like, because we travel for work and because, you know, I remember I tried to do this podcast in Saudi Arabia, and if anyone knows about Wi-Fi connection in Saudi Arabia in hotels, it was a pure fantasy to think that I was going to be able to record a podcast in that circumstances. And I tried so hard with the poor guests for like an hour, and I was like, we have to give up. This isn't working. And I feel like there's just so many situations where you're like, oh, I've got to end up back in this hotel room or run to this location. So excuse us if they haven't always been ordered from an auditory pleasure point of view, because We have literally done it in closets, in the hotel rooms across the planet. Where's your strangest place, Kat?
I think the one that I'm thinking of is I was in an Airbnb in New York, and the refrigerator about halfway through the podcast started buzzing so aggressively that I was like texting my fiance on the other side of the screen being like, please come unplug this fridge right now. And he crawled behind me in my chair to come and unplug the refrigerator so we could actually hear the podcast. I think that's definitely my weirdest one. But I mean, I've probably recorded, I think, probably in at least 20 different places because it's just wherever we are, right? So
yeah. Well, I always have to negotiate with my husband because my bathroom is right behind me. So he's like, do you want a naked person in the background while I shower? Like, so I have to be like, I'm doing a podcast. You're out of the room. And even my kids, it's like podcast time. And even then, it doesn't work sometimes. They're coming in.
Yeah, it's a different platform.
Ask for something. That's it. But I think during the pandemic, like, there's a lot more forgiveness about that kind of interruption, right? Because everybody started doing work from home and it was impossible to keep that controlled. So you remember that thing on CNN where the guy was being interviewed and the kids came in the background?
Yes. And then the nannies
ran in
around
and did it. Yeah. And that was like kind of like not scandalous at the time, but it was kind of newsworthy, you know? And then the pandemic happened and that was like daily life, you know? So it's like that became not something that people would react to anymore, you know? So it's like, and it's life, right? I've got kids, I've got a husband, I've got shit going on. So sometimes that does hate the podcast.
I actually miss your daughter coming on and giving you like a good night kiss or good morning kiss and saying bye. So sweet.
We're definitely like really, really prevalent. She's very cute because, you know, Jay, I've got an assistant right now, Alex, and Jay's always like, you talk to Alex. I'm always on the Zoom with him. You talk to Alex more than you talk to me these days. And Alex says, I'm a nicer person. This is this banter between them. And then, but he's worked so hard for me recently that like India comes up and I said, he's been doing a lot of work for me this week and it's been a lot. And so she said, well, can you tell him thank you for working so hard for my mum? And I just thought that's really so cute. You know, she just really appreciates, you know, to say something like, she didn't have to do that. So I texted him and said, India says thank you for working very hard for me.
That's so sweet.
So it's nice.
Yeah, it's very sweet. All right, and moving on, what are we looking for now that we are starting, I guess, our 4th year and the StageLync podcast?
Well, I think for me, you know, I think one, we're going to get a new jingle. I've got a friend of mine composing something, and I'll share this with you soon. But I haven't heard it, listened to it this morning. I think one of the things that we want to do and open out to the audience is also make this relevant for people who are not necessarily in the industry as well, right? I think that we have a lot of industry listeners, but also the content is also interesting for, I think, people who are arts fans as well. And I think one of the things that we think about with StageLync is to not be exclusive. We've always been quite a B2B platform, and we will continue to be, but we also want to open the door a little bit to the audiences. And I don't know how that will play out necessarily in the podcast, but I think that a lot of the themes and discussions that unless we're getting really tech nerdy with Wet, but a lot of the conversations are very generic conversations about our lives, our work, our passions that I think should be interesting to the rest of the world and arts fans as well, because I think we're very fortunate to do what we do and love what we do, and I want other people to love what they do, no matter what that is, you know, and find that path. What about for you guys? What do you feel we should do or think about or focus as we move forward?
I think for me, I'm just really excited for us to kind of expand our network of people. You know, Circus Talk is a very popular platform. And I think that by combining our forces together, I think we're going to reach a lot more people which is really exciting. And, it's just going to make the world that much smaller. So I'm excited for our double reach.
And me, I think, as I do, I have a double. On the one hand, I think it will allow us, as Kat says, to reach more people, and I hope we can bring in more diversity in terms of stories, genres, and like just diversity in general, like more people from Africa, more people from, I don't know, Eastern Europe, or places that they surely have a performing arts or live entertainment scene, and we don't hear a lot about it. And on the other hand, I would like to try to dig in, and now that we kind of have some track, try to get some of the big names of the industry as a whole that have shaped, and yes, maybe more on the technical side that they never speak, but the people that have shaped the way we do theater or the way we do musicals, the way we do circus. Like, how do we get to have the shows we have today? Like, how do we get to have the ceremonies? Like, the people that forged that, and to get to hear some of those stories, like the pioneers. That would be, I think we're in an interesting time where we still can talk to many of those people and get some of their information and their expertise and just their experiences. Yeah, we should treasure that now that we can.
I love that idea. It's funny because when you said that, I was thinking about the interview we did on the Epic conference with StageLync, who was one of the founders of Cirque du Soleil, and what a profound interview that was, given that, he's well into his retirement, and, and that history of how that came about and the massive effect that it had on the globe with those actions, which all started with him getting on some stilts and walking, 20 miles to self-promote the projects and stuff like that. Like, quite crazy things that they did to make things happen. And I love those stories. And I also think, which is something that's been happening quite more recently with me, given post-pandemic, is I've been asking the guests a lot more about what their current opinion of the industry is. And I think we should also be forward-looking. How can we shape it? How can we affect it? What are the issues that we need to address? One of the things is diversity and inclusion, getting the right stories on the stage. There's massive closures in certain theatres because the model in the States is not working anymore for nonprofit in the current socioeconomic situation. How is the industry going to react to that? A lot of the discussions that I've had with StageLync is like, how do we get the performing arts more digitally engaged so that the younger demographic who are on these phones get to the shows, and how do we affect that? So, because the old way of communicating about shows is quite still archaic, and that generation of regular performing arts practitioners are getting older and retiring and being less likely to go to the theatre. So how we're building new audiences, this is really important for me personally and professionally, just not because it's my job or anything like that, but because I see the gap between what I do and the people that I interact with in the industry, and then my digital engagement here with StageLync, and it just people's lack of utilizing those methods to get people to connect and engage. And I also think that means that the industry has to open their arms to that digital engagement, which I don't think that they're scared of it. They don't understand it. They don't see how it can benefit them. They're not putting money or time or effort or the people appropriate to it. And one of the most inspiring conversations I had recently was with sorry, the name slipped in my head. The one who does the fandom stuff for Marvel, about how they create fandoms in the movie industry and the Marvel universe, and how the performing arts don't tap into that. Yet we do have thousands of theatre fans and Broadway fans and musical fans, and it's not capitalized in the digital space as much as it should be, that keeps people coming to the theatre. So I've been thinking a lot about that, because in part of StageLync's development is like, what can we do about that, and how can we be an advocacy for change in that model. And there's more coming up with StageLync in the future that we have many plans for, which is exciting. But in my discussions and talks with the team and with a business coach that we have, we've done a lot of reading about audience development and audience studies between mostly Western markets, so the UK, US, Australia, just because it's an easier place to start than looking at the whys and wherefores for other markets. But it's all of the data is very similar about what's happening and how it's happening, and between countries. And it's something that is a focus for me, and it's a focus for StageLync to support the industry. And this is why we want to open that door to the audiences as well. It's like, okay, let's bring them in behind the curtain. Let's show them these wonderful people we're meeting, talking to. And even if I go back to the reason that I started TheatreArtLife in the first place, I was convinced that the stories that got told about the industry, the marketing, the media, was all about how good these shows are and the people that stood in the spotlight. And you and I all know that some of the most fascinating people are not in the spotlight, and they're not talking, and the most best shows are not generally being marketed. And I wanted the people to come out of the wings and show these beautiful people that I know and work with in the industry and tell their stories, because it's really important to me. These are some of the most amazing people on the planet, and we've just spoken about them, and they don't get the light of day. And to do that, I've had to put my face on bloody camera. So here we are. So there you go. That's my rant for today. Sorry, that was a bit long, but there you go.
No, but I think, and it's interesting how it aligns, because I think I started talking about the people that build the industry and you're talking about the audiences, but I think it's intertwined, and probably that's our role right in the middle. Like, we're taking this legacy that has been handed over to us, and how do we make sure this still exists, but it keeps to exist in a way that's useful and welcomed by our next generations.
Absolutely. Any further thoughts on that, Kat?
I'm just really excited to see where this goes, honestly. I think it's going to be a really good collaborative process. It's cool to be a part of something that is starting fresh and being able to help shape it as we move forward. And I'm sure we're going to have lots of great conversations about how exactly to do that.
Well, I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you, first of all, Anna, for starting this crazy adventure, and then Kat for jumping on board this crazy adventure, and also doing what you guys do to land yourself in a closet to do a podcast, prepare the questions, switch off the refrigerators, or getting your fiance to unplug fridges in the background, and the commitment to it, because I think that without your guys' commitment to this, I would not have had the bandwidth to sustain it alone. So thank you so much for your contribution to this program platform. And I'm really, really proud of what we've done over the last 4 years, and I'm really proud of you guys.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you. Thanks for your support and enabling us, and always trusting as well. It's been good.
On to StageLync. Let's do it.
Yes.
TheatreArtLife is a global media site for entertainment. Memberships start at only $38 per year. You can have unlimited access to our daily published articles, including entertainment news and the writings of active industry professionals, ensuring that you are always up to date on the global happenings in the world of entertainment. Become a part of the international entertainment community and join us now at www.theatreartlife.com.